Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, you can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Please help us grow by subscribing or sharing the Newsa-Cast, or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Now, let's get this show on the road.
Yeah, I was assistant coach for 6 years, and I was the head varsity coach for 8 years, and I also was head track coach for 7 years there.
Wow.
At the same time. And strength and conditioning coach.
You have to drive the bus as well?
Yep, I did. I still do.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, thank you for joining us again on this epic journey of sports-related topics and interesting stuff in Northeast Wisconsin and around the state. We're heading to episode 8. Can you believe we've made it to episode 8, Joe?
We've made it. I love it, Tosh. This is a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. You know, every single time that we've talked to somebody, it's really interesting to hear their story. And you know, that's one of the things as an educator. You always talk about every kid has a story. Every person you walk past on the street has a story, and it's become more evident to me that everybody has a story when we listen to every single one of our speakers.
Agreed. It's one of the great joys that you and I get personally out of just doing this. It's something that I haven't always realized in my life, learning it a little bit later in life. But you're right. It is so fun just to sit down and talk to people and get their story. And 10 out of 10 times, it's really, really fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. It's always fascinating. That's why you're like read books, because you're fascinated by things from the past. So now you're not necessarily reading books, but you have a story being told to you from that person. And this week we sit down with FVL and we talk to Coach Seth Jaeger. Great interview. He's talks about his journey growing up in the southern part of the state and through his coaching process. But really we sit down and we talk more about, you know, his team, his philosophy. And again, one of the big things that comes up is not necessarily winning. You want athletes, not football players. You want to build character. You want to build leadership. And it's interesting and fantastic to hear that, you know, multi-sport athletes, that's what they want.
We've used this word a million times, refreshing, but it's such a great word to describe this, that it's so refreshing to hear these messages, because maybe it's just because of social media or how we consume this stuff, but you swear to whatever, every coach is horrible and every kid just wants to make it to the NFL or to the pros. And that isn't really the case. I mean, there are so many great coaches out there that are doing what we all think is the right thing to do. And that's just mold these young men and women into, you're building the foundation of their life. They're going to use all of these skills the rest of their life.
It really becomes apparent in this interview. And besides that, we have a great throwback with Leroy Butler. And just an inspiring story that he tells from Red Smith. Again, you're going to get a small clip in the podcast, but you can get the whole interview on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely. Check out the YouTube channel. We're putting out a lot of content on there. We want people to go there. It'd be super sweet if you guys would subscribe to it, view. But yeah, we're bringing you clips from the Red Smith Banquet from we have 57 years of history there. Got things like Bill Walton, he's still talking from last week. And, we're going to have a lot of just, these folks are as interesting as the people that we're interviewing. And they tell a lot of the same stories of their growing up years, just like a lot of the people that Tosh and I have interviewed. They're telling the same story. So you're getting both perspectives, from Hall of Famers to people right here in northeastern Wisconsin. But yeah, check out the throwback. It's released every Sunday on our YouTube page, the Newsa-Cast YouTube page. And yeah, check us out.
You know what? I sometimes we talk about restaurants and different things like that, but I'm ready to talk maybe just a little bit of football. So one of the biggest games this week. And one of the reasons we had FVL on was the Apple Bowl. And we have the Apple Bowl coming up. It's a traditional, the 53rd year that the Apple Bowl, that the rivalry between Xavier and FVL has taken place. And it's the 37th year that it's actually been called the Apple Bowl.
It's a rivalry. Yeah, that's what you live for. Again, these kids are going to remember this the rest of their lives. And that's a huge night in the fall when you get together and you play your crosstown rival, and you've got everything on the line for 50 plus years. You guys are banging heads and you're playing football. And as an official, I've been lucky enough to work a few of the Apple Bowls, and it's always a special night. The crowd's electric. The kids play hard. The games are typically really close. I remember it used to be played down in the Banquet Bowl for a few years.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Yeah, it was probably in the 90s, maybe sometime. I don't remember exactly, but I remember working a game down there with them. And then now that both high schools have great fields with improvements coming in the future here, the very near future.
And did you know the Apple Bowl trophy is called the Paulston Lloyd Trophy, and it is in honor of two veteran sports personalities from Appleton, the late John L. Paulston.
John Paulston.
Yeah. Yes. Paulston, yeah. He's a one-time sports editor of the Post-Crescent, and the late Bob Lloyd.
Yeah, no kidding. Tosh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, absolutely. So Bob Lloyd, I don't know how many of you remember Bob Lloyd, but he used to be the MC, Master of Ceremonies of the Red Smith Banquet for, I don't remember how many years, but certainly the first half of those at least. And he was a character. He was on WHBY. He was the sports director. He was actually a really, really good play-by-play announcer. He would call all the football games. I'm sure he called some Apple Bowls for WHBY. That was just a hobby for him. His real job was working for Kimberly Clark in sales or hospitality, something like that. But yeah, what a character Bob Lloyd was. And John Paulston, when you think that 1950s, Mad Men, if you think of the Post-Crescent, you just the classic newspaper man with the thick, black, greasy hair, that was John Paulston. I can still remember him. But he was a great, great sports writer. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, when we still read the newspaper, you read John Paulston. He was at all the games, and he was a true beat writer. And two great people that I'm sure people are starting to forget their names. But yeah, John Paulston, Bob Lloyd. What a great fact, Tosh.
Yeah, Paulston Lloyd Trophy. So they'll be battling for that this Friday at Xavier at 7 p.m., which is a great game. Thursday, we have another awesome game. And this has been a battle for the last several years in the playoffs. We got Kimberly and Bayport at Kimberly.
Yeah, that's going to be an electric game as well. Those two have really battled the last half a dozen to 10 years. They fight each other to that level 4, level 3, seemingly almost every year to see who's going to go to state. And more times than not, Kimberly has
had the upper hand.
Yeah, they have. Yeah. And they really, nobody has had the upper hand on Kimberly very often. It's quite the program for sure. But a great battle. That's a TV game on Channel 32, and it's going to be some good viewing, I would say. Both teams are going to bring it. Both teams are excited to play. Absolutely. I know Kimberly unfortunately had a forfeit in week 1. Their opponent wasn't able to play. So this is going to be week 1 for them. And Bayport lost a tight one in week 1, and they're going to be ready to play.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game. This is where you see where you're at, see how things are going to go. And this is the time to do it. In these early games like this, you sometimes set the tone for the season.
Yeah, this is a tone setter, I would say. If you come out and if somebody whoops somebody, you're certainly riding high, and it's a good win. You're ready to go. We'll see what happens. There's nothing like Friday Night Lights, and I know the next game you're going to talk about, Tosh, the Nina at Manatee game, and here again, you talk about just like the Apple Bowl. I don't know if there's a trophy in this one, but this is crosstown rivals. It's Neenah Menasha.
Absolutely.
They used to play it in the old FVA, years and years. The basketball games were epic. The football games were epic. And now with all the shuffling of the conferences through the last several years, they don't get to play each other as much, but it's being played at one of my favorite high school stadiums. It's been redone in the last couple of years, but Calder Stadium in Menasha, I mean, those stands are going to be full. There's going to be several thousand people there. That's going to be
Absolutely.
an epic game, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Those are some great games for the weekend. Thursday starting off, lots of great games, and Friday, and we have lots of games. There's good games all over. We're still somewhat in that non-conference first couple games of the season, but these teams are all preparing throughout the FVA, throughout the Northeastern, throughout the Bay, the Eastern Conference, the FRCC, and the Valley. These are all have teams here from the Fox Valley, and this is it. School's starting now. Kids are in schools. The stands are packed with fans and parents, and it's an exciting time of the year.
We're going to cover a lot of different sports, but it's football season right now, and we all love football. We love the Packers, we love the Badgers, and we, high school sports here, high school football. It's big time high school football up here. The state champion. There's been a lot of state champions in this area that have come out of this area year after year. So really, whatever field you come across those Friday night lights, I would go check it out. These teams throw the ball. They a lot of them have great athletes. It's not boring, run the football 10 yards and try to move the chains. It's, some of these teams, that Bayport Kimberly game, I mean, they're going to move the football. They can sling it around the field, and it's fun to watch. High school football is fun to watch.
They're going to put up some points for sure.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun. Absolutely a fun weekend of football. We'll come back next week and maybe have some insight into some of these games and absolutely talk about those big three that we see on the horizon. And, we're really happy that you can join us and continue to join us here in the Newsa-Cast. You can catch it on Spotify. You can catch it on Apple iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And the YouTube channel, Joe mentioned it before when we talked about Leroy Butler. Maybe you didn't get to go to the Red Smith Banquet and see these guys speak, but now you can just tune into YouTube and you can hear some of these awesome speakers that they've had throughout the 57 years of Red Smith.
Yeah, definitely. It's video. I mean, the quality is really good, especially Leroy Butler and Bill Walton. The last couple that we've put out, Butler will come out here in a couple of days, but the quality is good. It's good listening. The messages are good. It's just something different to listen to. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. Just put your earbuds in and do a chore or two and have Leroy Butler talk to you.
So thanks for joining us, and we'll let you get to listening to this podcast and some of the great segments that we have for you. All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, we're going to take an old look at new for the week, and this is where we take a little look at history. Could be in Northeast Wisconsin, it could be in Wisconsin, it might even be across the nation, but an old look at new. So you ready for this, Joe?
I am ready for this one, Tosh.
Do you want to go first, Joe?
Yeah, I was thinking, Tosh, if you were to rank most famous people from Appleton, you got to put Harry Houdini on that list, maybe, right? William Dafoe. I don't know. Can you think of anybody else? I've got one more, and I think perhaps this person is, in my opinion, maybe the most famous of all. Certainly, I would say the most accomplished. But back in 1885, mid-August of 1885, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Edna Ferber was born.
You're not going to believe this, Joe.
Yes?
But that is the exact same one that I had.
Oh, nice. It was bound to happen.
It was bound to happen. So yeah, we're on the same page here. And as you started saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, I think he's going to steal it from me.
Well, let's talk. I mean, she deserves both of us. I mean, when you look through her biography, her accomplishments, it is absolutely world renowned. It is. She wrote 12 novels. 12 novels, 2 autobiographies, 9 plays, and a whole bunch of short stories.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. I mean, worked in the first female reporter for the Appleton newspaper.
Yes.
At 18. She was hired by the Milwaukee Journal.
Yes.
Which is absolutely incredible, where she worked for 4 years. That's amazing to me as well. And then she came back to Appleton, and, she was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for her novel So Big in 1924.
Yeah. Yes, she was born in Kalamazoo, but she grew up in Appleton. She was here when, from 12 years old on. She went to school through this system.
Right.
She wrote first, like you said, first female reporter at the Appleton Daily Crescent, which later became the Post Crescent. We all know the history of the fight that the women have had. And 100 years ago, boy, they did not have many rights. And for her to be able to do what she did and be that accomplished and win those kinds of awards, wow, you've just got to be proud. And to have her call Appleton home and, have a school named after her, that makes Appleton proud. I mean, I'm proud to have Edna Ferber be from Appleton.
Well, and I, one of her books, 1952 novel, I remember watching the movie adaptation, and that was Giant, because when I was, in my teens and stuff, I kind of had a little James Dean phase.
Yeah.
And I remember watching Giant, and, that was her 1952 novel that was made into that movie. I mean, do you want to talk about a cast? Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson, James Dean. I mean, those three right there. Dennis Hopper was in it. Yeah, I mean, just an incredible cast. They don't quite make those, they make movies, huge production movies, but that was a pretty big production back then.
I don't know. Didn't it seem like Hollywood just was a lot more intimate back then, and just, I don't know, it just felt like the artwork was better. The acting was better. I mean, I love movies now for sure, but I don't know, that's the foundation was built. And to think that she was a part of that, and
to tie that all back in too, Ferber Elementary School, Edna Ferber Elementary School in Appleton. So, got a school named after her as well. So yeah, that's a great look. You don't think about how important some of the people are who grew up in this area, and some of the amazing things that they've done. And, again, it goes back to our whole mission here, telling stories.
Absolutely. The things that we discover. And I've got one final stat. Being a letter carrier, I have to get this out there. But in 2002, a U.S. postage stamp with her likeness was issued as part of the Distinguished American series. So well-deserving indeed.
That is awesome. Well, cool. That was good.
Yeah,
Even though you sniped it from me, but that's okay.
Hey, you put me in the leadoff spot on that one.
I did. It could have been the opposite way around. So
it could have been, but I often wondered when that was going to happen. It was bound to happen. So that was pretty cool.
Hey, that's an old look at new. Hope you enjoyed this one. Kind of a tag team, this one.
Yes.
But excellent content, Joe. Really liked that one, and it was good to be able to talk about that one together. Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, very excited to have Seth Jaeger, who's the coach of FVL football. We're going to talk a little bit about his journey and talk about the upcoming Apple Bowl and some of the excitement going on at FVL as far as the program and athletics in general. So welcome to the Newsa-Cast, Coach Jaeger.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I one of the things I want to talk about, and, we kind of talk about this story. Can you talk a little bit about your background and maybe where you grew up and what you played in high school and what, kind of your journey to where you are now?
Sure. I grew up in southern Wisconsin. I lived in the country in around Johnson's Creek, Wisconsin. I say Creek because that's proper pronunciation if you live there. If you're not from there, you don't know. So I attended Lakeside Lutheran High School. I was a 3-sport athlete. I did football and basketball and track. Always had a passion for sports. Had a high school where you could do all 3 sports and be successful. Involved in everything that I could possibly do in high school, band and choir, and said every sport possible. It was a wonderful atmosphere to be there. As far as my journey through high school, I had awesome parents that were at every game, every competition, that just were super encouraging. Encouraged me to continue on and into college and play some sports there too as well. Where I think I really got my passion for teaching and for coaching at Martin Luther College.
Okay.
Which again led me to doing what I'm doing today.
So back in high school, you said you played 3 sports. Did you excel in all 3? Did each sport kind of help you in the other sports as well?
It's 100%. As a coach, that's what I preach to all of our athletes, our football guys. Let's get you involved. Let's see what you can do in just besides lifting in the off season. Multi-sport athletes are some of the best athletes out there. And in the sports that I did, I started doing track just because I had great coaches in grade school.
Okay.
But that really helped me in so many other aspects of other sports. Football, obviously, the physicality of it made me a better basketball player, just more stout in the post as a small center. But there's a lot of everything that goes together, and being an athlete is not just one sport. It's about varying what you do. And like I said, I had the opportunity to do all those sports, and it helped me in my career throughout.
We just did an interview with Ryan Borowitz, and he has the driveway up in Green Bay, and he played at Ashwaubenon. He was player of the year for football. He played basketball at UWGB, and just like you said, stressing multiple sports. And I think, I'm at public school at Appleton East, and we're seeing less and less athletes who are playing multiple sports. What do you do to foster that in some of the players that you have?
I think part of it is just being there for the guys, saying, hey, if you're doing this, I'm going to be there for you, watching you guys, and whether you're doing basketball or wrestling. If you're up in the weight room, I'm going to be there. Again, just trying to see if there's an interest. And some kids, they're 2-sport athletes, and that's fine too. Again, encourage to see if we can get them at least started. And a lot of times if they get, like, for example, track program, if they don't have a spring sport, let's get you in the door. Let's get you in the first couple weeks of track. And if you like it, stick with it. But most of the time we tell them if they start, you can't quit. So, but it's better just getting the foot in the door. It is. And just preaching. Our strength and conditioning coach, Coach O'Connor, is really good about that too. We see that natural talent in somebody. How can we get you involved? And obviously high school, the more involved you are, the better experience that you have with different groups of kids and just being active. Yeah.
And I think by doing that also, what you're fostering in these kids is that you can do anything. You can do things for your entire life, and these interests. And, that's a great thing. I mean, you hear a lot with some of the sports and parents wanting their kids to specialize by the time they're in like 5th and 6th grade. And by the time they get to high school, they're burnt out already. So I think it's important to push, the idea you can do multiple things. Try it. See what you like.
Sure. And it is beneficial. Let them do what they want to do. Some people ask me about my kids. Do your kids have to play football? My boys. I said, no, but they have to be involved. I think that's a big thing. And they see what they like and pick from there, and away we go.
You go to Martin Luther College. Was football the sport that they recruited you? Or, I know there's a passion to go to a school like that. And part of your passion is serving the Lord as well. And how did Martin Luther College play for you?
Interesting journey. Truthfully, when I was graduating just in senior year, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had really good teachers in high school who said, hey, you could be a teacher. I said, oh, really? Okay. It just happenstance that my brother went to college there, and I knew I wanted to play football somewhere. And they offered, obviously they offered there, and I thought, well, let's give it a try. Let's give it a few years. And I had great coaches. I had just amazing teammates. I also did track for a couple of years though too. But the bond that you have, I think, as we call it, our fellow called workers up there, that those continue on to the years, because we're fellow pastors and teachers in the ministry, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful connection.
Oh, it's fantastic. So after Martin Luther College, you played your football there. Where did you go after that?
Sure. My first call was to a small town, Bloomer, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Some people don't know it's the jump rope capital of the world. Great little town. I served as a principal, and I taught grades 5 through 8 in a very small, I think the most we had was 36 kids in the school. I was there for 4 years before I took my first high school position in Fond du Lac. And
how long were you in Fond du Lac for?
Yeah, I was at Winnebago Lutheran Academy for 8 years.
And that's where you started coaching football?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I was assistant coach for 6 years, and I was the head varsity coach for 8 years, and I also was head track coach for 7 years there.
Wow.
At the same time. And and strength and conditioning coach.
You know, in a smaller school like that, you kind of do everything, don't you?
Yep, you do.
You have to drive the bus as well?
Yep, I did. I still do.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Your experiences, what, if you think back to some of the people who really influenced you, whether it's college, whether it's high school, whether it's even outside of both of those, are there a couple that really stand out for you?
I think going back to parents, man, I think that parents are such an influential part of your life, and that's the foundation for what you carry on for the rest of your life. My parents, huge work ethic. You know, they taught you how to work, and they taught you how to love, and they taught you a value of family and faith and all those things. That's the foundation. From then, man, I had some great coaches that just were passionate about what they did, but they cared about the students and their athletes, and just actually got to scrimmage the last 3 years against my old high school football coach. Paul Bauer, his name is from Lakeside, and that's kind of interesting. And you're standing on the other side, and I can't call him Paul to his face, but I have to call him Coach Bauer because he demanded respect and he demanded a lot from you. So I think he was an influential guy. Got to college, and I had coaches that just related really well. Pretty laid back, chill guys, but I had expectations for you. So
that's awesome. So, you know, we're lucky enough. My sons have had you as a coach, and Ethan's currently having you. So this is your 5th season at FVL?
Yep, going to 5th. Yep.
5th season. Okay. I guess I was kind of trying to remember if Will was the first year that you came. You know, I've heard you talk about, you know, your goals as a coach and as a program. And you talk a lot about character, a lot about leadership, a lot about developing athletes, not football players. Talk a little bit about those characteristics that you're really trying to install in these kids and what you do.
Oftentimes what we talk about as a coaching staff, and one of our goals is that if the people that go through our program aren't better Christian young men and don't have that foundation going into wherever world may take them, then we've lost the point of our program. Obviously, that's winning football games is important. And developing athletes is super important, and that's why we have a football program. But there's so much more to it that feeds into what you do in the program. If you can create a bond with your players and the players amongst themselves and a common goal, as many coaches will tell you, you make a team that's maybe your B team into a B as an average into an A- or an A. And you get them to buy into those things. And that's how important those things are as well. So it's not just about the X's and O's. It's about the daily routines. It's about respect for what we're talking about this week, as obviously we start in school, the respect that you have for teachers, for fellow students. Those are all part of what we do as our program as well.
That's amazing. And it's super refreshing to hear that. And just, you can tell how much you care about these young men as well. And that's something that obviously drives you and drives your coaching staff as well. So, you know, I want to get into a little bit of the team now. So you've had this year is kind of a turnover. You had a lot of seniors last year, a lot of seniors graduate and who played pretty important roles on your team. So how do you transition from a really heavy senior class like that to a little bit of a newer and different situation this year?
Next man up. Really, we have a lot of seniors this year again, in a lot of roles. And did they get a lot of playing time last year? Not as much. But they're progressing, and it's a learning experience for a lot of them. It's their first, last Friday was their first game where they actually had to play varsity competition for 4 quarters. And we're learning a lot about them, and they're learning a lot about themselves too, as far as there's more potential. And that's what you keep reminding them too, is you have more in the tank, you have more potential. As coaches, we believe in you, and now you have to believe in yourself enough to make those changes too.
And obviously you have to develop from freshman up, because you might be in this situation. You never know what's going to happen. And your program, how have numbers been since when you first started 5 years ago to where they are now?
We've gone up in numbers slightly. We've had one of the years I think we had 5 seniors. I think that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
We had a very, very small senior class. Just for whatever reason, some guys didn't come back. We're sitting about 100 players for the last 2 years now, about 100 players. Before that was about 86, and have a couple of bigger classes. This year's freshman class is a little bit smaller, just enrollment-wise as well too. But we should be, again, around the 100 mark as a program.
Do you feel that the Fox Valley Saints program has helped to bring some numbers into into the FVL program?
Yes, they have. They are flourishing right now. We actually have, there's 2 teams per class right now. So it's Maroon and Navy team for each level. And that's a lot of kids are getting playing time. They're getting experience with having 2 levels or 2 teams per level. So, and we have a pretty good transition number from the Saints program going into high school. Also, there's a lot of parents by all means, their decision not to have their child play until high school. So we've still picked up a few here and there other than the feeder program itself. Yeah,
I think that's an important thing too. I mean, I think you see more kids who don't play Pop Warner, don't play at that 6th, 7th, or 8th grade level, just because of some of the injuries that can happen in football. I mean, it's a contact sport. It's physical for sure. So
we have a lot of parents reach out and said, "Is it okay if my son doesn't play or hasn't played yet till high school?" And by all means. We have great coaches on our JV2 level that help teach them, and we get them into the system pretty quick. So,
and it's all about that athlete too. If you're an athlete, you can come in and be successful, which is something you stress as well. Let's talk a little bit about your season this year. So what are your expectations going in? What are some of the challenges, and what is your conference? I think the conference is realigned again this year. A little bit.
Last 2 years have been the same. That's a whole nother conversation. That's for sure. So we still have our crossover games with the Bay Conference. The first 2 are non-conference. So our first 2 against Winneconne and Xavier are non-conference considered. And then the next 2 Bay Conference teams, which is New London and Shawano, actually count towards our conference record for playoffs.
All right.
Even though they're considered non-conference. But then the rest of the NEC teams, then we run it. For our team, our expectations is always number 1, compete and be consistent as far as improvement is concerned. Our conference every year is a little bit different. I think across the board last year as a conference as a whole, there was a lot of talented senior athletes that graduated.
Okay.
So same with us, so the conference, it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out this year overall. But what we love about it is it's a competitive conference. Week in and week out, it's not easy.
Absolutely.
It's ground and pound. The prep work is continuous, just because the NEC is a stacked conference. There's a lot of good teams, as evidenced last year by all of us making the playoffs, and Little Chute and Freedom making it deep into the playoffs. And it's a fun conference to be in.
I honestly, teaching at Appleton East, I see the FVA and you see the Kimberleys and Ninas and Fond du Lacs, but from top to bottom, your conference is tough. Like you said, every single week it's a grind. It's a challenge. And it's fun to watch. Even Friday night was a great game. It was fun to watch. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of big plays, and just a back and forth. And your kids, your players grinded. They showed some grit, and definitely that's going to help them throughout the season.
You bet. It was an interesting game. I'll give you that. Obviously, one of those typical first games where you have some errors that you probably wouldn't make in the second, third games, whatever it might be. Yeah. Give a lot of credit to Winneconne. They're such a physical team. They're well coached. So we have a lot of work to do going into this next week with Xavier for sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. This is the 37th Apple Bowl and the 53rd meeting between FVL and Xavier. I did a little research on that, and you guys have been playing each other for more than any other team has, which is absolutely crazy. I think it's so cool, especially the fact that these kids play with each other in the youth football program and then come in high school and compete against each other. What are these kids like? Are they just like super jacked up for this week and you have to kind of like tame it down a little bit, or do you just run with it?
Yeah, we team meeting yesterday, we brought the Apple Bowl to the team meeting.
Okay.
And just to get the guys excited about obviously the rivalry. Just like with any game too, with a rivalry game, you want your athletes to play at a high level with any game. And obviously, like I talked about, composure is a big thing. You can't play above yourself going into these rival games. Yeah. You have to use your mind. You still have to technique, whatever it might be, to be consistent at a high level. And I said, when you do that, when you're consistent at a high level, and then the byproduct is that trophy coming back on campus. As much as rivalry games are so much fun, as a coaching standpoint, the guys get up for it. We still have to play within ourselves and realize that it's another game, and it's a game that we have to win. And the byproduct is that trophy coming back. So, and that's always the way I preach it to our kids.
It's got to be. I coached coached at Lawrence University, coached some baseball for about 9 years. And every time we play Ripon and play St. Norbert, our guys would just get so excited. And you have to say that excitement needs to come down a little bit, because then you make the mental mistakes. And like you said, you're trying to play above yourself. That's got to be tough at a high school level. It was tough at a college level. It's got to be tough at a high school level to get these kids calmed down so they can compete and do what they're capable of doing.
Sure. It's for those of us who teach high schoolers, it's an emotional roller coaster. Right? And we talk about too, just the ebbs and flows of a game. If you teach your team to be emotionally consistent at a high level, I think you avoid some of those major mood swings, as I call them, on a field itself. And like I said, if you teach high school, you know. If you have a high school kid, you know. So
absolutely.
It's about managing emotions, encouraging, correcting, coaching, all those types of things.
That's awesome. Some of the excitement you have some players. I know you stress, and I think this is a great thing as well, that it's not an individual, you're a team. And so if you could talk a little bit about how you bring that team concept to the football program and what you do to foster that idea.
Yeah, we talk quite often that if, especially in our captain's classes and our leadership classes, that in order to lead, you actually have to serve. You can't lead unless you have followers, unless you have people that are willing to buy into what you're going to do. So you have to flip that role. And obviously, we as a Christian school, we have the greatest example of what Jesus has done for us, serving us. That's our ultimate example. So how do we translate that? We call it, again, another key term is what we call working in the dark. Do the thankless jobs without being recognized for what you do, and that's including like your getting enough sleep, getting your right diet, working out. And someone might not see you, but it's what's best for the team. And doing those thankless jobs just for the sake that things need to get done. So we try to develop our captains, our leaders in that mindset and that perspective. And when guys really buy into it, I think they have people to follow. And our captains this year have done such a great job of displaying that for our younger athletes and for their fellow athletes as well, their fellow varsity guys. And I think it's contagious. If you have great examples of leadership, it's contagious as well.
And I will say that your summer camp at Martin Luther College is amazing. My son came home and he was just so excited being a freshman and being his first time in it. You do have some great leaders on that team, and he talked about those leaders for several days after, and just how excited he was with that camp.
Good. And they have, it's fun. We pair up, freshmen and seniors, they got their buddies, and you see it quite often. Some of the ask athletes, who's your inspiration? And a couple of those younger guys, sophomores and freshmen, said it's our captains. Some of our captains are seniors. They see how hard they work and how much effort it took to get to the point where they are. And yet they're leaders that have time for the young kids. Sometimes you get your seniors and your freshmen, they don't mix, but our guys, they recognize the freshmen. They realize they're there. They teach them how to work, and they give them recognition for the hard work that they have as well.
That's awesome. So, a lot of excitement for the season, but I want to move on to a little bit. You have some excitement at FVL as well. You have some new facilities and some new plans coming in place for the future. You want to talk a little bit about what's shaping up at FVL right now?
Yeah, we have a brand new building project that's taking place on campus. For those who know about our campus, our tennis courts were not replaceable. Gives us an indoor tennis facility and also basketball courts in there as well. In that facility, just golf simulators in green, putting green, and also be used. We just had a meeting for PE purposes, so physical education classes can be held out there. It's just Wisconsin spring lasts forever, so right. Indoor facility for tennis, physical education, just gives us another resource, not only for us as a school, but also for the community to use as well.
And do you see the football team be able to use that a little bit as well once that takes place in the fall? Yeah,
if we needed an indoor place just to get some reps in for captain's practices, whatever it might be, that would certainly be utilized for that as well.
Now, is there a phase 2 to this project as well? Possibly looking at some improvements to the football stadium?
Yeah, there's a couple of things in the works, and then later down the road, I'm not sure how far down, but it could be improvements at a different stadium. different indoor facility. Those things are, I mean, quite a ways further down the road from what I understand.
Right. Yeah.
But again, people are thinking about it. People are planning for it. And again, it just gets people excited about our campus and the ministry that we have going on here.
And I see, FVL is just continuing to grow, which is fantastic. Your population of students is, you had new locker projects and trying to fit students in to the space you have. If we look at that and kind of look to the future of the football team, what are some of the things that you see possibly as far as numbers and as far as your team goes as well in the future?
So for our numbers, like I said, they're fairly good. If you walk through the hallways, one of every 7 to 8 people or students in that hallway is a football player. And it's awesome. I get fist bumps. I walk the hallways every break, and I get fist bumps and bro hugs and dabs. I can't remember what they're called exactly, but I get them everywhere I go, and it's a lot of fun. So I hope we keep that ratio of student athletes in the football program consistent. Obviously, success helps that quite a bit, but within growing enrollment, I hope that those numbers increase as well.
I want to touch on one more thing. You have coming up, I'm going to say October 8th, I believe, is the pancake feed. Is that the right date? I'm not sure.
That's October 1st.
October 1st. There we go. Can you talk a little bit about what the pancake feed is and, for our listeners, what they can expect if they want to show up and how all that works?
Sure. The pancake feed that we do is our annual fundraiser that helps support anything that's not part of the budget. And football is expensive. So equipment is look at helmets and those types of things. So the pancake feed goes to help supplement anything that's outside of the school budget that is provided for us in our football program. So it's from 9 to noon on our campus in our commons. So it's all you can eat pancakes, sausage, Copper Rock Coffee. Our sponsors include Copper Rock Coffee, the Reader Group, restaurant group. So they have a couple restaurants in town. And we have a couple other, Titan Roofing, and there's one other that I can't think of right now, but it's all sponsored. So there's juice, there's fruit, there's activities for the kids. We have our entire gym set up for different football drills. They can try on pads and helmets. There's live auction items, and silent auction items that we do. We have speakers from past players and coaches that talk about every half hour. We also have door prizes, so raffle tickets and door prizes that go along with it as well.
That's awesome. Well, what a great opportunity. And I assume the football players will be working that so people can meet some of these fine young men that you've taken a part in shaping and serving them pancakes and everything else.
You bet. They'll be dressed up in their uniforms and taking plates and garbage and serving you guys up. That's for sure.
I want to thank you for your time. I know it's a busy time of the year right now for you, with school starting tomorrow and with the Apple Bowl. So yeah, if you are interested in the Fox Valley and want to see the Apple Bowl, Friday night, 7 p.m. at Xavier this year. It's going to be a great game. Always a lot of excitement, a lot of fans. And the Pancake Feed, October 1st, from 9 to noon. You can check that out and come and donate, participate in the live auction as well. So thank you for telling your story. Thank you for giving us a little update on your team and the season. And we look forward to following you as well. And hopefully you guys can run through the conference and make a deep playoff run this year.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks. All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, it's time for that segment that we tend to have a little bit of a problem with because we renamed it, named it, renamed it again, and we finally settled on the Forgotten and Never Forgetting segment. So I think we got it nailed down now.
Yeah, we're close enough, right? Yeah. We're close enough every week.
We don't have to totally trash our instincts anymore. And
exactly.
But I'm going to let Joel take the lead this week. What do you have for us, Joe?
Well, Tosh, I've come to really enjoy this segment. It involves a little bit of research and involves getting your mind going a little bit. And I was just doing that exact same thing up at Starbucks this afternoon up on Northland Avenue and working a little bit on the podcast, studying a little bit of NFHS rules, looking out the window, things like that. And as I was gazing out the window, I saw the Northland Mall, and it got my mind thinking of, you remember the Northland Mall when it was the Northland Mall? It was actually active and they had stores and it was busy.
I think the biggest thing I went to in the Northland Mall was the exclusive company.
Yeah, no doubt
getting
about
vinyl
that.
And getting CDs then. Yeah.
Absolutely. Nothing like hairband 80s rock, man. You got to love it.
Exactly.
But for a short stint, it wasn't very long. The Northland Mall was an active mall. I don't even know if you can get in anymore. And I know you can go to the Chinese restaurant. I think that's about as far in as you can go. But it got me thinking that malls are certainly forgotten. We still have the Fox River Mall, but it got the mind going that we had another really cool mall in our growing up years. It's no longer there at all anymore. And that's Valley Fair Mall, which was on the south side, right there on the big turn on Memorial Drive. I mean, hell, we had some great times there. I mean, that was a lot of, had the movie theater, had a pretty cool mall, had the Golden Griddle, which was just epic for breakfast.
And it was labeled the first enclosed mall in the United States.
Right. Absolutely. They always stuck their claim to that. And
they had the arcade.
I mean, they had the arcade. They had Godfather's Pizza.
Yep.
I mean, even early on in the day, they had a grocery store. I think it was the Town and Country, Mike's Town and Country. Was a grocery store back in the day. That place was awesome, and we were really lucky. I mean, we also for a short stint had a mall downtown. It's still there. In fact, it's that's supposed to be redeveloped. I hope it turns into a pretty cool indoor space. That downtown mall it's kind of cool. I think the potential's there. I always feel like I'm walking through like a train station or something like that in there with the high ceilings and all that. I mean, at one time, all 3 floors were full in that mall as well. You had a food court and all that kind of stuff. It was
you're right. We have seen kind of a decline. It depends on the area. You know, up in Green Bay around the Lambeau, we have a mall, and they've kind of revitalized that. They have the big grocery store, and they have all kinds of other things there now. And yeah, we're seeing a changing of the guard sorts in a way for the malls.
It's forgotten for sure. Our malls, maybe it bleeds into a little bit. I'm never forgetting, but malls are certainly forgotten. Malls like Northland Mall and Valley Fair are forgotten. But with that, Tosh, what's forgotten in your world?
Something I never thought I would do or never even dreamed of is for the last 23 years now, I have been involved in a summer process that takes place in many areas in Wisconsin. My lovely wife grew up on a farm, so I've been dragged into unloading hay from the wagons for 23 years. And today, it's always the hottest time of the year.
Yes,
we had to unload hay again, and it's like I just want to forget always unloading hay and putting it up in the mow and doing this and doing that. But this leads into my never forgotten as well it's a great time to spend with family. I mean, I'm on the wagon with her 70-year-old dad and my nephew Dylan, who's getting ready for the Manitowoc County Fair, and just the times you spend. I mean, you're spending a lot of time on the wagon. You got to have some conversations. So you want to forget about the heat and the sweating and the touching every single bale and just, the wear and tear in your body. But also it's a lot of fun because everybody gets together after and you have lunch and you mess around with the young kids. And it's a good time. It's a family tradition for many people in this great state of Wisconsin, who has a huge farming influence in this state. So it's definitely a forgotten, and it's also a never forgetting for me.
Tosh, I love that one. You're right. It's a perfect mix of it's forgotten for sure, but you're never forgetting that. And that baling hay, man, I absolutely love that. It touches at the heartstrings for sure. I was looking at pictures actually today on Facebook of you guys, and you're right. for any meteorologist out there, if you want to guarantee hot day, just see when they're going to be baling hay, and that'll be your probably hottest day of the year, right?
Absolutely.
Pretty darn close.
It always is.
But, well, I got to ask, what was for you guys eat like kings? What was dinner? What was lunch?
Lunch was broasted chicken and wedge potatoes and some coleslaw, and that was good.
No, I love that. That's awesome.
So what do you got, Joe?
Well, Tosh, one thing I'm never forgetting, and it was reaffirmed on me last Friday night. I toy with this every year. You know, am I going to continue to officiate? It's especially when you're trying to study and life gets busy. But when I stepped on the field Friday night, the feelings come flooding back, and I'm never forgetting just the joy of working a Friday night football game with my crew. Just that the whole thing, when you meet at the park and ride, you drive in the car and talking football and talking life, and the five of you step on the field and work a game together and communicate in the way that officials communicate. And after whatever, stop and grab a bite to eat. And it's an awesome night. I absolutely love it. And I'm never forgetting that feeling of just being a football official.
That's awesome. Is it? And it is like a little family for you. I mean, the camaraderie between you guys, and you're together on a crew, and that's a little different than a lot of the other sports.
Yeah, football is definitely different. A lot of the other sports, you kind of work with a crew in some of the sports, but you do get mixed up a lot more. But with football, it's once a week. It's one game. It's just different, and you get close to the guys. We're actually going to have the Doden crew. That's who I'm a part of. We're going to have them on in an episode here in a couple of weeks, and we're just going to talk about being an official. It's kind of cool. They have some great stories. We all have some great stories as an official, but it's you're right. You become close. I've been with this crew, darn near 10 years. So you develop a really good relationship, kind of similar to you and Tim with the fly fishing. We go back and listen to the fly fishing episode. Tosh and Tim have a great relationship, and it's kind of wound around fly fishing. And I've got the same thing with my crewmates, and it's because of high school. It's because of high school football, and a lot of us, I don't do it anymore, but have, work college football. And that's the same kind of dynamic, just at a different level.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Those are the things you don't forget. I mean, those are the stories, those are the time with friends, and times that you just don't forget so yeah, that's awesome. I like that a lot, Joe. That's good stuff.
Me too, Tosh. And I'm never forgetting. So
yeah. Fantastic. Well, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, get on Spotify, get on iTunes, wherever you get your podcast, and hit that subscribe so it comes to you every week, so you get to catch up on these. And if you forget that we have an episode dropping, Spotify, iTunes, wherever, will not forget.
They're never forgetting. And there's one other way too. I mean, write a comment to us. We look at the comments, and you can email us too at the Newsa-Cast@gmail.com. Send us a comment, send us a suggestion. If you haven't forgotten, what the hell? We'll rattle those off as well. Let's have a little fun with these segments.
So thanks a lot, and continue listening to our podcast. All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, we have a treat for you. This throwback, it comes from us from April of 2022. And this is Leroy Butler. What's kind of cool about this throwback is that he really did a huge favor to the Red Smith committee by taking some time out of his busy schedule to come up to Milwaukee. And Joe has a great story. Leroy Butler, NFL Hall of Famer, Packer Hall of Famer, Packer great. When you hear Green Bay Packers, one of the names that automatically comes to your head. So this is going to be a good throwback, and I'm going to let Joe tell a little bit of a story here.
Yeah, Tosh, it's amazing how this happened. So it was 2022, April of 2022. We all know we came through COVID and stuff was still messed up, and we wanted to do a live show, and we always wanted to have Leroy Butler. It made sense to have him be the Red Smith winners, the Shields Sports Red Smith winner. So we didn't know Leroy Butler. We didn't have any contacts or anything. And our group likes to sit around and just kind of throw ideas out there. And the great Nick Salm, who's one of our committee members and started the AYFA, great football coach. Nick's a go-getter. When Nick says something, he just does it. So he's like, well, why don't we just send him an email? And Nick's like, I'll just email him. Like, hey, okay, Nick, go ahead. He emailed Leroy Butler. Well, sure enough, Leroy Butler gets back to Nick. They strike up a conversation. Nick talks to him about the Red Smith event, and hey, we'd love to just honor you. It's this night. And Leroy said, I'd love to get there, but I've got, he's involved in a lot of different things. I mean, we see him in the supermarket. He's got wine. He's involved in 100 different things. Yeah. And one of the things is a West Coast cooking show. And who knew? But long story short, it worked out where Leroy, with the help with Nick, I can't stress this enough. Nick literally just held his hand, got him up here, but Leroy drove up here, met Nick, got here about 10 minutes before he was going to go onto the stage, came on the stage, gave an absolute dynamic, and we're going to see that with Shane Sparks. Shane and him hit it off. It was one of the best interview conversations that I've ever just been a part of to just see, and that's, I think that comes out in the video. It certainly came out in the room that night, and then knowing that Leroy needs to get back to Milwaukee for his West Coast cooking show, he didn't just hop out. He stopped and he spent time with all the scholarship winners. He spent time with J.J. Keller and Jim Keller and that whole group. He spent genuine, full attention time and gave us everything he had, and he didn't charge us a nickel for it. He just came literally out of the goodness of his heart, and he believed in what Red Smith is about, and that's just helping kids, helping youth sports. I mean, he'll talk about it. Youth sports obviously was a big part of his life, and that's what we as Red Smith hope to get out of doing the Newsa-Cast, doing these throwbacks, is to bring awareness and to have people just support our mission of just helping kids in our community, Northeastern Wisconsin. And Leroy is a prime example of how to lead from the very top.
And not only did he talk to, J.J. Keller and people who were important with the Red Smith, but he also signed kids' interviews as he was walking, kids' programs as he was walking out after the interview.
Absolutely.
So he was rushing, but he wanted to make sure that his presence was known and that he was there.
If we didn't just tell that story, there's not one person out there that would think he was in a hurry.
Absolutely. So this is a fantastic throwback. Remember, on the podcast, you're only going to get a snippet of it, but you can definitely go to the YouTube, and the YouTube channel is going to have the entire interview. And that's where you get the good stuff of the throwbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had Bill Walton last week. Bill is still talking. I mean, it's still going. I think we're 7-8 days into that, and Bill does keep talking. The message is still there, so you can check that one out. But this one, Leroy, is a strong message. It's really, really great to just hear from number 36.
Red Smith Sports Awards Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin, and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
Have a seat. Thank you. Thank you so much.
First of all, congratulations. We're going to get right to the meat and potatoes on this.
Okay.
You get the call, waiting patiently, National Football Hall of Fame. Do your best in describing what that moment was like and what you remember from that day.
Well, my wife knew, who's here, Genesis Butler. Don't look at her, though. She's really shy. Just look at me. She knew for 2 weeks. And real quick, I do a lot of tours at Packer, at the stadium, at the Packer Hall of Fame. So I'm doing a tour, and we're up there together. It's the Friday before they play San Francisco. So I'm like, where is she? I don't know where she is. She disappeared. So I said, okay, we'll get on with the tour. And then later I saw her, and I now know that she was getting the call, so she knew first. So after the Packers lost, I was very, very upset, as you can understand. And you would think that she would probably tell me then to make me feel better, but nope, she didn't. So, but I'll say this, and I was telling Cassidy, who I work with outside, I know what it feels like when a young lady wants to get proposed to. Every year you think he's going to propose. Every year, the next year, girl, he's going to propose this year. It doesn't happen. Now, this didn't happen to me, by the way. I just know what it feels like. Then you give up, and you say, well, he's never going to do it. We're never getting married. I'm done. And then Charles Woodson is at your door. And you're thinking, no, this is... Because as a player, you think about the Super Bowl. You really do. But you think about this is like new territory. And I just remember my mom having a conversation about if this ever happens. She passed away 5 years ago. She was telling me that you're going to represent a lot of people. And I was like, well, what is that? She said, well, being a special needs kid, as me and my wife has a special needs son, and you're thinking that you're alone because your son or daughter may never do the Lambeau Leap. But having a conversation or a paragraph in our house with my son is just like doing the leap. So I represent those people, and then I want to be one of the few living Hall of Famers that lives in the community. So when Nick called me about being here, not only was I here with Mr. Keller, by the way, years ago, we had to make it work. Because I do an online cooking show tonight, I said, I gotta come because it's important for these young men and women to one day do something great. To say, you know, he was a very normal, measured person, and I just appreciate that. So it's a big deal because of when I got that number quickly, they gave me a number 357, and I didn't know what it was. And we were in L.A. for the Super Bowl, and I said, what is 357? Then that's one of the board members said, well, you know, there's only 362 guys in the Hall of Fame. You're 357. And that's when it hit me. That's when it hit me. And ever since then, it's been amazing to tell the story.
1990, you get drafted by the Green Bay Packers, second-round pick. Coming from Florida, Florida State. You come to Green Bay, Wisconsin. What was that like the first time you fly into the bright lights in the big city of Green Bay?
Now, me and Jim Keller wrote a book about this, From Wheelchair to Lambeau Leap. I remember we were putting the story together. I was telling Jim about this and his wife, Marianne. I remember telling him this story. I used to be a Cowboy fan growing up, okay? Down south, we had one channel, and it was all Cowboy games, so I'm a huge Cowboy fan. So my favorite uncle was sitting in the apartment draft day. He's sitting there with a Walter Payton jersey. He gets up and says, go anywhere but the Packers. I don't like the Packers. I'm like, Unc, I don't choose, but maybe I'm a Cowboy. I don't know. No, just don't go to the Packers. If they call, just hang up. That ain't happening. God is good. The phone rings. It's Lee Rimmel. We're thinking about selecting with the 48th pick in the second round. I say, well, what's the holdup? Let's go. He said, well, you got to talk to Lindy Infante. And I did say, who is Lindy Infante? I didn't know he was the head coach. He gets on the phone. He said, we're going to select you with the 48th pick in the second round. Changed my life. The Packers saved me because that was my goal growing up. And I remember Lindy's saying, when you come here, it's going to change your life. And he was right. I get on the plane coming in May 2nd, 1990, and May 2nd, it was 17 degrees. When I left Florida, it was like 84. I had on shorts. And me and my girlfriend at the time, not my wife now, but she know the story. But, hey, I have to live with her. I got to be. It was a guy gets up. I've never seen him before. The pilot comes on. It's a beautiful day in Green Bay. The wind is coming from the north. It's a beautiful 17 degrees. And if you ever seen that movie, The Exorcist, my girl's head turned all the way around. Did he just, I said, no. The pilot is from the south. He said 77. She said, oh, because I didn't bring a coat. Neither did I. Some guy gets up and gives me his coat. His wife gave my girlfriend her. I said, I love these fans. I love the fans. And when I got there, it was like a Tuesday, I think. It was like 1,000 people there. They had a band going on. They got dogs dressed up in green and gold. They got like posters. I'm like, man, do these people have jobs? What's going on? I'm just a draft pick. What's the big deal? No, you're a big deal. Then there was a young lady come down next to me. She had a cane and she was walking towards me. She could not have wanted a selfie. They weren't out yet. There was no Siri and none of that. No internet. Sorry, you millennials. No iPhones, none of that. She said, listen, you must never lose to the Minnesota Vikings. The next team, she started to change a little bit. I said, oh boy, what's going on? She put her cane right over my heart. And you better not lose to the Bears. Then she turned around and left. I said, wait, ma'am, what about Tampa Bay and Detroit? She turned around like the Matrix. She said, you won't have a problem with those two teams. You're good. She was correct, right? And that's when I said, this is the place I wanted to be. 1990, we come over, we get Brett Favre, and then we get Reggie White, the first free agent. Things started to change, the winning culture. And real quick, the last thing, and this is kind of a Matt LaFleur story. When they called up and said, we just signed a new coach, Mike Holmgren, I had no idea who he was. They just say, well, he won a championship. He's been this, San Francisco. I had no idea. So I can understand people not knowing who Matt LaFleur was 3 years ago. And when Mike Holmgren came in, he taught us the winning culture. And he was a control freak without being a control freak. He had guys from 21 to 31 years old. I got to get everybody to think the same to win a Super Bowl after 31 years. It changed my life.
What's the biggest impact that Reggie White had on you? Describe that relationship.
Reggie taught us that it's okay to be saved and talk about it. You can be saved and be a normal person. There's Reggie. Put up the beer. Don't curse around Reggie. You can be normal. And I remember him saying, I want guys to go to Bible study. It was crickets. Like, guys ain't doing it. I said, Reggie, I got it. Every Thursday, it's our hardest practice. The guys like to go out and hang out at the bar and just kind of, that's our hardest practice. I said, you got to show up. Reggie White shows up. The guys see him, and it changed. The following week, we had like 57 guys in Bible study. Now, some of the guys opened the Bible upside down, but at least they were there. You got to be like, how's this going to change my life? And what he was doing was what Jesus would do. We got to trust one another. I'm letting you know that as long as I have your back, I will never sleep. When you swipe your key card, one team, one dream. And that's what he was doing. And then we start to win. And it really changed my life to say that it's okay to be saved and be a normal person. And that's what Reggie White changed the whole entire locker room. And he was actually building me to become a leader once he left. And that has a lot to do with it.
Would you have ever imagined in a million years that jumping into the crowd, the Lambeau leap, would be what it is today? When did you know you were jumping into that crowd? Walk us through that.
Well, I tell you what, I'd like to tell you some cool story, but no, it was all spontaneous. But I remember that particular game because it was the coldest game in my career. And I really thought, this is a true story, I thought that they were going to forfeit the game. I said, it's too cold. My refrigerator is 32 degrees, and that thing says minus 16 with the wind chill. I said, guys, what's wind chill? I had no idea. And then somebody gave me some pantyhose to put on to keep you warm. Then I say, women have been keeping this secret for thousands of years. So we're putting these things on, and then Reggie White, 6'5", 300 pounds, walked by. I said, oh. I said, Reggie. Ooh, he said, what? I said, you got to run in yours. I'm dead sure we got our pantyhose to stay warm. And I caused a fumble, as you see. And when Reggie picks it up, now God is good, because when you watch the leap, you'll see Tony Bennett, not the singer, by the way. It was a linebacker we had, Tony Bennett. Nobody got that joke unless you're 50 and up. Bryce Pop, y'all remember Bryce Pop? They fall on the way to Reggie. They fall. I don't know why God made me stand up. And I ran towards Reggie, and I said to myself, he's not going to lateral it, because Mike Holmgren told any defensive player, if you get a lateral or a fumble or an interception, don't lateral the ball to another teammate, because you'll drop it. We have bad hands because we're on defense. I said, he's going to do it. I get it. I'm running down the sideline. I was so excited. It's my first ever touchdown. And I remember running towards the crowd as I'm running down. Those people were like, why isn't he stopping? Right about there, they're like, what is going on? And then I said, I'm going to jump, and it was all spontaneous. And I think it's the best celebration because you need the fans. Without the fans, I'm going to hurt myself on this frozen wall. But I remember going back, and a few years later, Robert Brooks made a song about a jump in the stands, and it blew up. Yep. And I remember the president of the United States, he comes over a few years later, and he's Bill Clinton. He comes in, and he's in Lambeau Field. I said, Robert, do you have the CD? He said, yes, give it to me. He gives me the CD, A Jump in the Stands. The president is not supposed to take anything from anybody. I said, Mr. President, my boy here, come here, Robert, wrote a song about the Lambeau Leap. He said, what's the Lambeau Leap? Secret Service. Y'all did not tell him about the Lambeau Leap? They were like, no. I said, here's a CD. He takes it, puts it in his jacket. It blew up. It blew up.
What are you most proud of?
That I played for one team. That's it. I mean, yeah. When they put my name up there for being in the Hall of Fame, it's very rarely you see a guy, one team. I took 3 pay cuts. I don't know if it was smart or not, but I took 3 pay cuts to stay because I wanted the fans to know I love them and I appreciate them. And that's what I'm most proud of. All my football cards got a green or white jersey.
That is the perfect way to end it. It's going to be hard to top that. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy that in August. Think about your mother. That'll be a very special night.
Thank you very much.
The Shields Nice Guy Award, Leroy Butler, Hall of Famer.
Thank you so much.
All right, Tosh, another fantastic throwback. I just love those. Leroy Butler, the stories, just his journey, his story. You and I remember, obviously, his career from start to finish with the Packers. Just edge of the seat listening for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a great story. Again, coming out of adversity and, and getting to the point where he is in NFL Hall of Fame, which is fantastic. And he was the originator of the Lambeau Leap.
Yeah, so, no doubt. No doubt. I remember that game well. Reggie White, of course, had I think it was a fumble recovery. He's running down the sidelines, turned and pitched it back to Leroy, and the rest is history.
And, what a great time for him as well to make, I should say, what a great opportunity for him to make that time to come to the Red Smith and have that interview. He just took the time out of his own busy schedule and came, and then was driving back to Milwaukee to get back to his cooking show.
I mean, legit true story. Think of everybody's schedule. You have to get your kids here. You got to get your kids there. He actually did that. He came up to Appleton from Milwaukee. It's an hour and a half drive up here to make the appearance, put on that, give that type of an interview that you just watched, and drive back to go do a cooking show for the West Coast. I mean, thank you, Leroy Butler. Yeah, absolutely. And, besides Leroy Butler, we had a nice episode. Got to hear some stuff about FVL football, the upcoming season. A couple things to remember. They have their pancake feed on October 1st if you want to go and support the FVL football team. And, just getting that excitement for high school sports. Yeah. I mean, we've said it 100 times. We love all the sports, but there's something special about a Friday night, and certainly something special about an Apple Bowl. Yeah. It's exciting. It's your crosstown rival. Those are lifelong memories that are being formed on those Friday nights. And it's going to be a beautiful Friday night. Yeah. Good, nice, hot August weather for football. FVL, Xavier, 7 p.m. at Rocky Blyer Field. Yes. Giddy up. Yeah, that's going to be great. So, well, thank you, listeners. We appreciate you tuning in. Continue to tune in. Hit that subscribe button. Spotify, iTunes, iPod, wherever you get your podcast. Absolutely. And also check out the YouTube channel where you can get the full Leroy Butler interview from last year. And just thanks for continuing on a journey with us. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better, Tosh. We're playing around with TikTok. We're playing around with Reels. I didn't even know what any of that stuff was 2 months ago, but we're learning on the fly. We're having fun with it. And the other thing, Tosh, I know we mentioned this earlier, you guys can email us too. We'd love to hear from you. It's Newsa-Cast@gmail.com. Newsa-Cast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear and feedback, good and bad. We can take the feedback, Tosh. Absolutely. We have thick skins. So yeah, we do. All right. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having you tune in next week. Thanks for listening to the Newsa-Cast. We appreciate your support. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so and tell a friend. A huge thanks to Digstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and create awareness for youth sports organizations in northeastern Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.